Hello and welcome to another Betfred Sports video right here in the Quest Media Network studio. Peter will delve right into the action. So last Friday, England beat Albania 5-0 at Wembley Stadium in the World Cup qualifier, and Harry Kane came up with a hat-trick, but there was a little bit of controversy in the game. Harry Maguire scoring as well, but cupping his ears, saying he's silencing his critics, but it was a little bit embarrassing, wasn't it?
Embarrassing? I couldn't believe it. I mean, he's talking about beating one of the world's worst nations or scoring the first goal. If he thinks that's going to answer his critics, he's got another thing coming.
Yeah.
It was after playing against Liverpool or City or anybody half decent, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was ridiculous that a player of his mentality should think that a goal against Albania is going to silence his critics. I mean, it's just nonsense. And it was easy to say that. If we want to criticise him, we'll criticise him.
Yeah.
It's not as if he's on next to nothing. He's a top-notch footballer who's gone to United for some kind of record signing for a defender. And he's not been playing well. And if people want to have a pop at him, they'll have a pop at him.
He's the leader of Manchester United. You cannot be doing that. Like you said then, he's playing one of the worst teams in the world, scores. Arguably a good header. It was a good header, but you can't be doing that.
Well, I thought Roy Keane summarised it when he just couldn't believe it. I mean, can you imagine Roy Keane doing that? I mean, he does his talking on the pitch. If he has a bad game, you can rest assured that the next game he won't have a bad game and someone will end up in the stand. He does his talking on the pitch, and that frankly is where Harry Maguire should have done it, his talking on the pitch and not against one of the world's worst footballing nations.
Well, talking about players doing the talking on the pitch, Harry Kane, one of those players, scoring a hat-trick. You know, he's had a pretty poor season with his club, Tottenham Hotspur, but he's come up with the goods in that game.
Yeah, well, you can contrast the two, Harris. I mean, he didn't gloat about his hat-trick, and he had more to prove than anybody else.
Yep.
He's been getting it in the cosh, hasn't he? People have been piling in on him, saying he's not doing the business. He scores 3. He doesn't make a song and dance about it. He says these things happen. He accepts they weren't the greatest opposition. And we move on to the next game. It'll be interesting to see whether he plays tonight, because he will be determined to get those goals up against San Marino. The record result for England, by the way, is a 9-0 win. That was just after the war. So if England get 10-0, that would be something to write home about.
Yeah.
I remember when they beat Cyprus once, and Malcolm McDonald got 6. That was a record as well.
Right, brilliant stuff. Well, as Peter says then, England do travel to San Marino tonight for that World Cup qualifier. They need just the 1 point to qualify for the World Cup next year. If Harry Kane does feature tonight and you fancy him to score another hat-trick, Betfred have him priced at 13-10. But Peter, what are the other odds looking like?
Well, to score the first goal tonight, Harry Kane, as you mentioned, he's certainly man of the moment, but it's whether he does play, because of all things, Gareth Southgate isn't into sentiment, and he'll be wanting to put a team out that will help him develop England's stars of the future, as well as knowing he's got Harry Kane to call upon for his major matches, and this certainly isn't a major match. Anyway, Harry Kane, if he does start, he's 7-4 with Betfred to score first. Tammy Abraham, his natural replacement, he's 3-1 to score first. Phil Foden, I thought he disappointed a little bit in that game, the last England game. He's 7-2 to score first. And Conor Gallagher, the guy who's been called up from Norwich into the squad, he's 6-1 to get on the score sheet. Emily Smith-Rowe from Arsenal, who did okay when he came on, he's 6-1 to score the first goal as well. Outright, England, get this, 1-200 to win the game with Betfred. San Marino 50-1. The draw, which I suppose is a slight possibility, that's 33-1.
Yeah, I mean, 1-200, the odds are stacked in England's favour. But as you said then, there's no sentiment in these games. You can't be just picking and choosing whoever you want. You've got to field a strong side. Portugal, you know, you look at last night's result, they've got to do it through the playoffs now to get to these World Cup, to the World Cup next year. So it goes to show that you've got to put out your strongest side.
Well, you have, but I don't think there's any question that England will qualify. Having said all that, and I think that Portugal will eventually squeeze through as well, because they often do, and they've got that man Ronaldo in the team. To win the World Cup outright, Betfred have France and Brazil joint favourites at 11-2. England 7-1 now. Spain 8-1. And Portugal, they've drifted slightly from the reasons that you just explained. They're 20-1 now to win the World Cup outright.
You mentioned Cristiano Ronaldo. He'll be pumped up, won't he? Because he knows that next year will be his final World Cup. So he'll be raring to go, won't he? He'll really, really want to get there.
Yeah, he'll probably back the moves by UEFA to try and get the World Cup every 2 years, because that's the what's FIFA, isn't it? Not UEFA. But he's going to he'll be backing that, as some of the older players do. It's interesting how the older guys want to keep that going every 2 years. But frankly, I think you should just leave it alone. In fact, generally in football, just leave it. Stop making silly little changes all the time. The only one they want to bring in is the sin bin. That is absolutely fantastic. I know that from my own experience as a referee. If you give a sin bin for dissent, kicking the ball away, the whole team turns on that player and said, well, you've taught yourself off the pitch. Now we've got to try and manage with 10. That peer pressure is tremendous.
Well, we'll move into some Formula One news now, because Lewis Hamilton had the drive of his life on Sunday, coming from 10th to win the Sao Paulo Grand Prix. Peter, amazing scenes, and that has lifted him to 3rd to win the Sports Personality of the Year.
He's now in 3rd place behind Emma Raducanu. She's 1-16 to win it. She is the darling of the tennis circuit. So Betfred have her as outright favourites, 1-16 to be the next Sports Personality of the Year, which is coming around. It's not so far off now. That vote takes place in December. Tom Daly, he's 14-1, second favourites. And as you say, Lewis Hamilton been cut quite dramatically now to 20-1, third favourite to win it. He's won it before, mind you, but he is third favourite now at 20-1. Next up is Tyson Fury, who's drifted slightly to 40-1. And the swimmer Adam Peaty is 50-1.
People often say Lewis Hamilton's success has come because he drives the best car, but you can't argue with that yesterday. That was quite spectacular, wasn't it?
Well, it was to come. He had 2 penalty points that made him go back down the grid. Then he started from 10th place. He's now second to be the outright champion with 3 races to go. And I think he could, if he carries on in that form of yesterday in Brazil, then he could go and win the Drivers' Championship again and also win the Sports Personality of the Year. This is the time to back him when he's on the cusp of doing it again.
Yeah. Certainly can't argue with his record. Well, the Premier League does return this weekend. We'll touch up more on it on Friday's Sports Talk. But Peter, what are the odds looking like for the Premier League title this season?
Well, next up for City is they're playing Everton at home on Sunday. United are at Watford on Saturday. City and the outright favourites now. They're the only they're 8-11 now at Betfred to win the Premier League outright from 3rd place that they are now. Chelsea 5-2. I think the value is with Liverpool at 5-1 with Betfred to win the title, because I think the African Nations Cup might affect their chances. They'll lose a lot of players to that. West Ham, we've just touched on their fantastic form of late. They've been cutting now to 40-1, fair amount of money from our London friends on them. Arsenal 66-1. United just on the drift, 80-1 now to win the title. Beginning of the season they were 5-1.
Excellent stuff. Well, there's always big winners at Betfred, and this week is no different. Peter, tell us a bit about one of your winners.
Yeah, well, I went to Yorkshire yesterday to meet these 2 guys who'd won on a fishing slot game. The theme was a fishing theme. And they paid £7 and they won £14,000. So there's nothing dramatic about that. But anyway, they have this pact between them. When they were young kids in Yorkshire growing up, they used to go fishing for tiddlers in this pond. Then they both started supporting Sheffield Wednesday. Anyway, they've been mates for life, and they always said if they ever won big, and this was considered a big win, they'd go on holiday. So the pact comes into force when they won £14,000. On a slot game where they basically press on the phone and they win from the like a roulette.
Yeah.
Anyway, they won, and they went to Tenerife. And whilst they were there, they both had these tattoos done with Betfred on.
Yeah.
So they've got this Betfred on the hearts. And he said if it wasn't for Betfred, then they wouldn't have ever gone on that holiday, that dream holiday. They splashed £5,000 whilst they were there.
Yeah.
Anyway, and
Must have had the time of their lives.
£140 each they splashed out for these Betfred tattoos.
Yeah.
So I'll be able to show you those on Friday. We'll get the pictures back.
Excellent stuff. You'll see those tattoos on Friday. Well, it's been great speaking to you once again, Peter. Like I said earlier, England do travel to San Marino for that World Cup qualifier tonight. They need just the 1 point to qualify for next year's tournament. And if you do fancy a punt on that fixture, Betfred stores are now open, but you can also bet online and via their app.